everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Around the Realm. I'm your host, Zelda, and we are back with Carmen, the man of cars.
Hello, it's me.
Hello, everybody.
We're back.
Yes, we are back to talk about our second episode of Night City Stories, but first, let's delve into some of our questions. So, for the first question we have here, Zigzag is part of the popular band Caterpillar Soup.
Yes.
So, what was the reasoning for the name Caterpillar Soup?
That's a good question for Aaron.
I wasn't sure if that was like you, or was that Aaron, or was that like a...
Yeah, she said that she wanted to be a rock star, and then I think she came up with the name on the spot, or maybe she came up with it beforehand, I don't know. But whenever she said Caterpillar Soup for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, I could see the merch. It was like a little caterpillar in a bowl of soup. I don't know. It was so cute. It was so good. Yeah.
I can actually think of it looking cute. At first, I thought it was like a really mean, like edgy caterpillar, like coming out of the soup. But like now,
an angsty caterpillar.
Yeah, like an angsty caterpillar was like a leather jacket, and then it was like all dark and like cyberpunk aesthetic. But now I'm thinking about it, like a cute little caterpillar in soup.
Yeah. Maybe he has a colored mohawk. Maybe that's the cyberpunk element.
We're gonna ask Aaron Fusco, aka Zigzag, what Caterpillar Soup looks like. What do you think Caterpillar Soup looks like? Comment below and tell us what you think it looks like, because I think it looks edgy. Carmen gave me a really chibi option. I'm like, So
yeah, what do you think? If you have like logo ideas, let us know. Fan art, whatever.
I want a logo. So for Night City Stories, was there any like specific stories or occurrences or like anything, or any sort of like movie or TV show that inspired you to help make Night City Stories, like the whole story and everything?
So like I mentioned before, I really love like gangster films, and there's this movie from the 90s maybe called Juice, and this is a deep cut. It's a gangster movie. Oh man, is Tupac in that movie? I think Tupac is in the movie. I think he's the main character. And I think he plays opposite. Oh man, if people have seen this movie, they're like, you're messing it up. I think it's Wesley Snipes and Tupac. I don't know. Look it up. Juice is a great movie. But I remember watching that and watching Menace to Society and a couple of other like crime mob films. And I really wanted to like explore how people in that kind of lifestyle could still have a really big impact on everyday life and like the things that we see and do in everyday life. So I think that was like the starting point for Night City, for this version of Night City.
I love it because I'm new to like crime movies. I mean, I'm trying to think what crime movie I've seen. I don't know, but I feel like that's why I like Night City Stories so much, is because I'm usually so into like Lord of the Rings and like all the other like this like medieval fantasy stuff that it's like refreshing and like new perspective to see like a cyberpunk crime kind of story. So that's very interesting. I'll have to see. What was the movie? Juice,
yeah.
I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I'm gonna have to watch it.
There's a lot of good ones. I also think there's one like the original In Too Deep with Mekhi Phifer. And LL Cool J is like a crime boss. Maybe it's called something else. If you know the movie where LL Cool J is a crime boss and his crime boss name is God, then let me know. Because I love that movie and I forget what it's called. But that one was also an inspiration.
Wait, with who? Mekhi who?
Mekhi Phifer, yeah, he was a really big actor in the 90s. And then LL Cool J, like the rapper, he's also an actor and he was in that film. That was one of the first movies I saw him in.
I'm terrible with names. I probably could have seen it 5 times for all I know, but I don't know the name. Do you know the name? Please comment below and tell us, because I'm at a loss here.
Let us know, yeah.
So was season 2 filmed during the pandemic?
Yes. Oh, I don't know why I had to think about it. It was for sure 100% yes.
Oh, okay. Like how recently after wrapping up Sovereign of Death did you guys like hop onto Night City Stories?
Yeah, so I think like probably in the middle of recording Sovereign of Death, I was casting for season 2, and I knew I wanted some folks from season 1 to return, so that like for people who had watched the first season, they kind of have the familiarity of some of the cast members, but also have new folks so we can have new voices at the table and also like for people who are new to the show, they wouldn't feel like there's a bunch of inside jokes and like I don't get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that like around that time I knew that I wanted to do more seasons, and by the time we finished season 1, we had the whole cast for season 2, and we actually had a session 0 for this season, and kicked it off a few weeks right after we wrapped season 1.
Oh, okay. And okay, so I guess pandemic was like kind of like a bit of a vague question, because I think for the beginning of season 1, pandemic was everybody's inside, nobody's allowed outside. For season 2, was it like pandemic, like everything kind of returned back to normal, but like with masks and like distancing, or was it?
No, I think we recorded all of season 2 in like the spring or the summer, fall of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So it was still like we were really unsure of what was going to happen, and so but for us it was cool because like we were still like hanging out and spending time together, so it was nice to like have this as a way to still spend time with my friends and like do stuff.
Definitely. I mean, my friends and I would play like, you know, like those little game pigeon games and like Messenger, play that for hours, just to, like on FaceTime too, just to keep ourselves sane. So I can imagine like playing, you know, like with doing D&D games and stuff like that, or Cyberpunk, anything would just be like really fun to just kind of like tune out the world and just go into a completely different person's life.
Yeah, also like the Jumpstart kit that we use is really light on the rules, and that was nice because the first few episodes we were like, oh man, you know, there's probably some people out there who've been playing Cyberpunk since the 80s or whatever, and they're like, oh, these guys are effing up the rules. But then after a while, I think we all got really comfortable with the characters, and we were just like the first season, it's like we're having fun, you know, and I think that being more relaxed about it helped us to have more fun, and also that came through in the storytelling in the episodes, I feel like.
Oh yeah, definitely. I wouldn't have known either that it was your first time. Like I think we talked in the first episode, like it was your first time DMing Cyberpunk, and I feel like it was a few people's first time playing tabletop, right? Like a few of them have played before, obviously are returning cast members, but yeah, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, this was Larissa's second time because she played for the first time with us at PAX East in 2020. And then this was Ryan's first time. My first time DMing Cyberpunk, second time DMing altogether because season 1 was the first time. So a lot of new stuff. I think all of us were new to the Cyberpunk system, but yeah, every season is gonna be like, oh, it's my first time with this system. But yeah, no, it was cool. Like I think that this system kind of prepped me for borrowing things from my experience with D&D and like making them my own. And also as a designer, as a game designer, it's like these systems are tools and frameworks, and within these systems I can make my own rules, and I can also change the rules because that's what it's there for. Like these are supposed to be guidelines and not like barriers to keep you in a box. And I think I really started to relax more with the rules and the systems and make them feel like it was something that I was in control of for this season and future seasons, which made things a lot easier, for sure.
Yeah. And you mentioned being a game designer, so do you think like your knowledge of being a game designer like helped you kind of like be a DM in a sense?
I mean, I like, you know, this was years ago, and we've done a lot of stuff since then, and I feel like I've grown a lot as a dungeon master, but I still feel pretty new. So I know there's a lot of folks out there who are great DMs that may or may not have that background, but I think for myself, it definitely helped me feel confident with the games because I'd have like 1 or 2 weeks with the game before we started recording, and so it's like, well, I sure hope this works out. And a lot of the times, improving rules and improving, especially the combat scenarios, came down to like balancing and level design techniques that I learned from my time working in games.
Yeah, and I mean, the more I watch, like, you know, Realms of Roleplay, I mean, even I was watching back at season 1, and Erin, aka Wynn, at that time was keeping track of where everybody was. Like, I was looking at the final episode, and she had a map pulled up. We're like keeping track of like where everybody's position is, and there's like all these other little things that I think that I've thought of that I haven't thought of at the same time. And then I see sometimes that when you're DMing that you look at a computer and then like you roll the dice. So like, what do you have like character, like do you have like kind of like character sheets pulled up for your NPCs, and like when they fight or take hit points, is like that like kind of like how it works?
Yes. So I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. So the other screen I'm always looking at, I made a tool. I've since changed it and updated it because it was kind of busted. But the season 2 version of the tool, it was tracking all the players, their hit points, their armor, their gear, and then I had NPCs and I had triggers throughout each of the maps. So in this game, we leaned more heavily on theater of the mind, so we didn't really have a map. But there were certain scenarios where I was like, okay, there's this thing in this place. If the players interact with this, then that triggers this other thing. And there were always other enemies that could show up, or like each of the enemies would have a trigger of like, if this condition is met, then they will do this, or then this other thing will happen. And I always try to add in like some environment stuff to mix things up. So all of that stuff is tracked on my spreadsheet that I have on the other screen. And I think that like I tried to automate a lot of it, but when you're doing it in real time like that and the camera's on, a lot of the times it's like, oh shoot, like the tool's broken, or I need to like change some code or something. So you don't always have time for that. But I think that having that tool really helped when, especially with so many players and when the combat situations are more intricate.
Yeah, especially since maybe there's more players in this season than previous season, and then like keeping track of the players and then all the NPCs. It's just a lot.
Yeah, it was fun though.
Yeah. So I guess talking about NPCs, you explained the process for season 1 about like how you make NPCs and stuff. Do you think that it's changed with this season? Because we were kind of diverting to a different theme, like a different, like a more mature, like darker aesthetic. So like, is there any like difference in how you go about making them?
100%. So if you watch season 1, there is one point in time where I told the players like, oh, so-and-so is not with you because you didn't check on this character. And then ever since that happened in season 1, they were like, is everybody here? So-and-so here, so-and-so here. And so this was a mistake of my own doing, and there were way too many NPCs and too many like additional members of the party. So in season 2, I was like, all right, I'm not going to make that mistake again. There's only going to be a certain, like a finite number of NPCs, and none of them are going to care enough about the players to come along with them. I break that rule at some point, but I try to keep the like NPCs, the cast, like to a minimum. Just like, and then anybody, like if there's ever extraneous NPCs, they're getting bodied for sure. I folded them up because I'm not gonna have another situation where it's like there's 1,000 NPCs and but I think that's part of the fun of like doing this show with my friends. Is like I can make mistakes like that, and then we can make it a part of the show and make it fun. And so, we're all learning and making stuff together. And I think that like we're doing it in a way where it's fun to make mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. Like the mistakes like literally make the show. Like, I mean, just diverting to season 1 for a sec, because I can't say too much about season 2. Arya crushing the heart.
Yeah.
Literally made it. Like, them forgetting that NPC character literally made the plot. So I feel like that's, like there's really like no mistakes, just like kind of like diverting how you approach things. So
that's right. You heard it here first. No mistakes. It was all perfect.
I'm just gonna send this to the season 1 guest. She said it was no mistakes. So, so I guess speaking of season 2, what is something without spoilers? Like, what's something that you're most looking forward for the audience to witness?
I think, without spoilers, I think the characters' arcs. I'm trying to be vague. Like I said, like we talked about before, like the players didn't really know each other, and we're all kind of learning, and it's COVID time, so it's like for most of us, this is the most interaction that we have. And it was cool to see like this group of people trust each other to tell the story that they chose to tell. Because when you have a group of people, even if they're your friends that you played a long time with, it's like it's hard to be adversarial with people in like play, right? I mean, if you're an actor or something, it's probably not as hard. But like if you're just playing a game with your friends, and it's like there's always a sense of like shared camaraderie. And I think with this particular setting and story, the players really committed, And I love the way that the story just took shape over the course of the season. And I think that's like all in part to them and to the amazing cast that we had.
Yeah, I actually love that they start separate this time. I mean, I can at least say that because in the beginning, you know, with season 1, Glee was all close friends and they had just finished the mission. There's already a tight bond between them. But with this season, they all kind of live separate lives. I mean, except for a few of them, like Sid and Gizmo obviously know each other and they're close. But there's just a different approach to the characters and like their arcs and stuff. So I agree. I would say that too. Like without spoilers, the character arc and I mean the story in general, but like seeing this particular group is just like a whole new, different sight to see. So, what would you think would be the most challenging part about being a DM?
That's a good question. The most challenging part is to make sure that everybody has fun. And I'm sure lots of people have different answers, but I think that's the most challenging and the most rewarding. And let me elaborate. So for this show, we have a lot of people with a lot of different experiences and different backgrounds that come on the show. And a lot of these folks, at least, you know, I know beforehand, but a lot of them don't know each other and everybody has different interests. But one of the things I always ask people before they come on the show is, what kind of stories do you like? And those aren't always the same. And there's some people who like, oh man, I really love romance, or I really love like tragedy, or I love, you know, like seeing friends overcome obstacles, or like found family or something like that. And so I try to incorporate little elements of the types of stories that all the players enjoy into the arc of the campaign. Because I mean, you know, it's a long campaign and I think that a lot of stuff happens. And I definitely don't want to prescribe anything. I let the players drive it, but I just always have in the back of my head of like, if there's an opportunity for some genre trope or some kind of element of a particular type of story that someone likes to happen, then I want to give that gift to the players so that they can enjoy the time that they're having playing this game with us.
Heck yeah. Do you find that there's like any difference in like your daily routine from like being a DM in Sovereign of Death to like being a DM in this season?
Yeah, for sure. I think that like in this season I spent a lot of time on the abilities of the enemies in combat. So like each of the enemies needed gear, they needed stats, they needed like stat sheets. And I think that like before we started the season, I was like, I'll be kind of hand wavy with it. And then episode 1 happened and I was like, oh snap, I need stats for all these enemies. So yeah, I think the prep kind of involved a lot more. It was kind of like mini character creation of like making these little characters and having lives for them. But it's like thug number 3 who's just like gonna get shot by Zigzag or whatever. But giving him like stats and gear and he has his own little story that like probably just happens in my head because, you know, I'm like, well, I need to like care about this person enough for them to have some kind of motivation. But I think that's probably the biggest difference for sure.
I want a Thug number 3 spinoff, like just like a one shot of Thug number 3. Now I'm interested.
His backstory.
Now I need to know his whole backstory about what led him up to working and then, you know, just getting shot by Zigzag. I need the whole story.
Well, after his son, Nightingale Switchblade was killed.
His son was like an orc. Or what was no, Nightingale Switchblade was an orc.
He was a goblin.
I'm a horrible stan. Yeah, his son was a goblin. Wow.
Yeah, no.
I didn't know the land of Yashan was in the same realm as that. Wow.
That's not true.
It's canon. Thug number 3 was Nightingale Switchblade's father.
Throw your Thug number 3s in the chat.
Do you want a Thug number 3 spin-off? Help me out. Avenge Nightingale Switchblade for me, because season 2 we're still salty.
Yeah.
Last question is the most important one. Which would you rather live in? The land of Yashan or Night City?
Now, Night City is more like the real world, which sometimes can be a bummer. And if there's if there's all these gangs, I kind of feel like Yashan is like a nicer place. Like, yeah, there's like a skeleton army or whatever that's trying to take over the world, but, you know,
There's like shadow dragons and, you know, all that other stuff.
But I mean, before all that popped off, people were kind of having a good time, you know?
Before? Yeah.
You know? I would pick your shot. It just seems like a chiller place, you know?
I mean, I guess I get it because I feel like I'd be scared in Night City. But I don't know. I feel like the real world is I'm like looking at dragons and Army of the Dead and then I'm looking at Thug Number 3 and it's just like Thug Number 3 is pretty scary. I don't want to mess with Thug Number 3, so.
Now, to be fair, we don't really see too many like normal people in these few episodes, so maybe the normal people are thriving. Who knows? I don't.
I don't know. So, getting into our episode 2 recap. So we left off with the encounter at the amphitheater after a Zigzag show was kind of sort of ruined. I mean, Zigzag saw it as like pretty neat, but I think that was a little bit of a bummer getting attempted murder. But you know, teach their own.
Teach their own.
Last we saw Sid and Gizmo are going to be at the Waffle Hut, and I feel like the Waffle Hut would be a great spot. Like, the Waffle Hut just sounds like it satisfies every meal.
Oh my gosh. I have just real quick, one quick story about the Waffle Hut. So, the Waffle Hut, like, after the stuff happened at the theater, I was trying to figure out a way of, like, okay, we need a chill moment to, like, bring the tension down. And then I forgot that Sid didn't order any food. And she was, like, so suspicious of the food. And in my head, I was like, is there a way for me to bring this back later? I don't know. But oops, I just forgot you didn't order food. I should have wrote it down.
Really? I was like, ooh, what was he trying to plan?
No, it was a mistake. I forgot your order. I'm a bad waiter. I'm sorry.
Oh my god, that actually makes it so... I'm going to watch the episode 2 again just to look at that again and be like, oh my god, it wasn't a plot. It's just Carmen's a bad waiter. Oh my god. So, they left off at the Waffle Hut. And, last we left off with Raven. Raven was with Bug in a limousine driving into Night City. And we see that Raven is meeting Ma Benito, whose character design I love, by the way. She looks super scary, super badass. And, yeah, you don't want to mess with her because she's Zigzag's mother, who is part of the the Benito crime family and is the enemy of the Novas, which is what Raven was a part of for her crime family. I mean, she's not anymore, but she was there once, and once you're kind of there, it's not really, on any good terms. But Ruby and Sid run into each other at this after party, and now I think the gang's all kind of coming together, and like we see that Ruby and Sid are not complete strangers, and that they knew each other. And then we find out that Sid was at the amphitheater to get killed, so everybody's kind of like freaking out and like catching up with each other, like, okay, what is going on? Because Sid is desperate to know more of like why she was killed, because she seemed to me like she was pretty close with Finnick and Nix, and then all of a sudden there's a sudden betrayal. There's obviously some more answers to that, but Gizmo decides to go in and disguise himself as the man Finnick sent, which was Nix, and he just pretends that he kills Sid because Sid is like, I need to know what was going on and what is happening. And Gizmo, once he goes in, he sees a person with a bloody katana and a mask and then exits quickly. So, I don't know. Ruby yells out Calypso and the person stops, but then just keeps going. Is it Calypso? I don't know. I guess you're just going to have to keep watching to find out. Because Zigzag then finds out that Raven was part of the Nova family. Zigzag didn't even know before. Nobody really kind of knew who Raven was until everybody had like this moment to chill and be like, okay, who are you? Who are you? Okay, hi, nice to meet you. So Zigzag is kind of on edge about that because the Novas were sent to kill Zigzag, but Raven saved Zigzag. So what are Raven's intentions here? So everybody's kind of like on edge, but they make themselves more than welcome at home with at Ruby's apartment. So everybody's kind of settling in, having a little uninvoluntarily sleepover. So Ruby's just a little pressed about that. And once Ruby goes into her room, she finds her ex Calypso, who we did meet in the beginning, and they are there, badly injured, and we're left with them just passing out.
Oh my
Is it
gosh.
Calypso? Is it not? Are you gonna find out in the next episode? I don't know.
I don't know.
You're just gonna have to keep watching because Calypso looks pretty suspicious to me, but I feel like it's also at the same time like, I don't know. Is it too suspicious? What about Raven? What about Raven's stance? What's Raven's goal behind all this, you know? So I feel like everybody's a little bit on the edge with each other, trying to figure out can they trust each other or not. So
there's a lot of unknowns.
Can they trust each other? I don't know.
I don't know.
Is Thug number 3 gonna come back to life? I don't know. Stay tuned for our next episode. And thank you so much for tuning into episode 2 of Around the Realm. Thank you, Carmen, for being here, telling us more about being a DM and giving us some more insight on this week's episode.
Thank you for having me, everybody.
Yes, we'll see you next week.